Hey, it's Rebecca. Welcome to Returning, a podcast to return to yourself and the wisdom within. I'm so glad you're here with me. Thanks for returning. Today's guest is Jessica Alba, globally recognized business leader, entrepreneur, advocate, actor, and New York Times bestselling author. Jessica and I recently spent the day here in Glastonbury together. She is effortlessly warm. Her eyes are very bright. She has a warm heart. And despite her impressive accolades and Hollywood status and 20 million plus Insta followers, she really is profoundly grounded, real, kind, sensitive, deep, interested, and interesting. I suspect that we all may resonate with some of the themes that emerged from our conversation. We really touch on some big topics here. Anything from the soul purpose, connecting in with the part of us that came in knowing, the longing for community, and also turning anger into passion, particularly from the sacred action perspective and, being a woman in today's modern world. At the end of this episode, you'll find a guided soul inquiry to explore the themes a little bit more deeply and to connect in with the wisdom within. I know how precious your time is, so let's open sacred space together before we jump into the conversation. In the center of your heart, imagining a beautiful flower, and invite it to open now, petal by petal, revealing a light in the middle. This is your wise, intuitive inner self. It's the part of you that is always guiding you and always available for you to return to it. Let's take a deep breath in together now and inviting your soul, your wise inner self to step forward. And then together, just taking a moment now to acknowledge the keepers and custodians of the land where I am and where you are too, known and unknown. Beautiful. Let's begin. So welcome, Jessica. So nice to be with you.
Thank you. It's so nice to be with you over Zoom. I wish we were together in person.
I know. I was reflecting prior to preparing for us to chat today, just on how unique and deep our first date actually was.
Right?
It went from a random
I cried.
DM to let's go on a sacred pilgrimage on
I
the day
know.
of the Queen's funeral.
Yep. No big deal.
No big deal. Exactly. And I loved it. And when I tuned into it, it was like one of the things that was really evident to me was just how with the flow we kind of went. Because I know I had an event in Edinburgh when you were in London, so I couldn't quite get there. And then you're like, I'll just come to Glastonbury.
Yeah. And I had other than Kate Moss and wellies and denim, little shorts and photos, I had no idea what Glastonbury was.
Right.
And when you said, I can show you around to some sacred sites, I was like, yes. Like, what are we even talking about? This is my dream. And I was with a trip got canceled, and I ended up just, because I was doing work in Germany, and my friend just moved to London, Galit, who was with me.
Yeah.
And we've been on this journey together of, I think, like self-discovery and connection with spirit. We both have, pretty ambitious personalities, and we're really go-getters and pretty kind of type A. Definitely more we both have leaned more into our masculine energy, which is the projector. And when I discovered you and your work all around the divine feminine energy, I feel like we're both on this journey, Galita and I, as friends, of discovering what that means for us as individuals, and then as friends. And what really was clear to me, and I think it really kind of solidified it, because it was the first time I've experienced it, was how important it is to support each other in that sisterhood around connecting with the divine feminine, not alone, but together, and how much more powerful, your the vibration can be, and how you can really elevate each other when you're all with pure intentions, and with an open heart and an open mind to be in the flow, right? And the world, I think, has conditioned us to basically run in the opposite direction. So it is uncomfortable, and it is different, and a little bit weird, but it was pretty easy to be in the flow with you.
Oh, yeah. And likewise, we didn't really have much of a plan for our day together. I was thinking we'll be together for a couple hours, but it was like 10 hours or something. And we were like,
I was like, you need to eat. Yeah. I was like, and I was so worried because you're like pregnant, and then and we were like walking up, like hiking. And
this is the thing, Jessica, because I have, through this pregnancy, I've had this pelvic pain. So I've not been like walking much, but that day I had none all of a sudden. So I'm like, we got to go with the flow here.
Wow.
And we definitely did. And one thing, I really resonate with what you're saying about, and as you know, like in Rise Sister Rise, I spoke a lot about being like making it in a man's world and willpower and all that. And I think these traits, like, they're not bad. It's just we've lived in a world where it's been, weighted too heavily in that way. So it's about bringing the balance back. And the willpower and the action, the grounded action, is so important, but it's just how can we flip it so we're actually tuning into the inner call first and then putting the resources to work, right? And one thing that really strikes me about your journey is this inner connection that you clearly have. Have you always felt that connection to something that's like, I'm here for a reason, or there's something I'm here to do? Has that always been there?
Since I can remember, I have felt like I am here for a reason, and I believe we're all here for a reason. Like I don't think that, I think my first sort of conscious thought about it, maybe I was like 5, and I recall not ever thinking that I was necessarily special. I didn't realize that I was, I wouldn't say special, different, maybe until a little bit later. But I would say that I really believe that we're all here to do good, and we're all here for a reason. So to bring more, and I don't know if I ever really described it as like love, or I just felt like what I understood is like there's a higher power, there's God, source, spirit, whatever you want to call that. I believe we're all here to do work to move the world into that light, and to goodness. I always believe and understood goodness, like goodness that feels good inside, versus the world's perception of what it means to behave, what it means to look like you're a good person. I saw right through that, and I think I was always really, I know I was always really intuitive with, I saw through what people their actions always and their words. And I always wanted people to, I guess I always felt like if we could just be honest with ourselves and in every circumstance or situation, then you can always move on from there. I didn't realize that a lot of people are really uncomfortable with honesty, which is ironic that that is something that I always kind of stood for or fought for, especially with my own family. And then I ended up like naming a company Honest and having a daughter named Honor, and just how much conviction I always have had around what that is, the truth of a situation, and not having judgment of it. Like, I think I in order to be an example, because I always believe in leading by example, and I've always been frustrated with people who use their words. I will call out my shadow energy, or my the things that are difficult for me, or the things that are obvious issues or darkness or whatever that is, right? I'm the first to call myself out, because I'm like, I'm just being honest. So now that we can move on from that, then we don't have to feel like, so what? I'm still here, even though I admit that I'm pushy or opinionated, or, sometimes I'm a bull in a china shop, right? But the problem with that is if you're always telling yourself everything that is flawed or wrong or stuff that you need to work on, you're never really in a state of feeling like love for yourself. Or you don't feel worthy of receiving love. And you have to make space for it before anyone else can. And I think that's something I've been learning, but I really feel like through all of your books and teaching, I'm on Starseed now, just around that self-love. And I think that's the balance you're talking about is, there's the projector energy of that masculine, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just anything out of balance, right, isn't great. And so you also need to be on the receiving end of love and receiving what you need to receive in order for the projection to kind of be on the highest vibration it can be on.
And with your company, Honest, obviously it's got such a clear purpose, a clear calling, a clear mission. Where did that come from? I believe it began when you were pregnant with your daughter, was it?
Yeah. So I've always been an advocate around social justice. I mean, when I started acting at 11, I made a deal with God, Source. I was like, if I could be successful, I was a very sick kid. I was sick in the hospital. I had many surgeries. And I also was very different to my family. I was raised in a family that I would say felt uncomfortable in, and they didn't feel like, I guess I never really felt at home. And it was perceived as, I thought it was too good for, like, who do you think you are, or whatever. And so when I started acting, I had gone to I think 11 schools before I was 12 years old.
Wow.
Which is really hard for a kid to move around a lot. And I was sick a lot. And I basically had no friends. And I didn't feel comfortable or feel that community in my own family. And so when I, made this deal with God, I was like, if I can be successful in this, I know I'm here to do good. Help me to be successful so that I can do good. And I really have always been passionate around children and women, because I feel like it's so obvious that they are the ones that are most oppressed in any situation. where people are going to be treated terribly. And so when I learned, I had an allergic reaction to a laundry detergent that is marketed for baby clothes. And my mom recommended that I use this. She said she used it on me, and it's just what you do. And I was pregnant, and so it was stuff I got from a baby shower. And when I had this allergic reaction, I called my mom, and I was hysterical. And I was like, I can't take medicine, and I'm having trouble breathing, and I have a rash, and I'm sneezing, and I can't believe you would recommend this. And she was like, you asked me for my advice. Like, you're hormonal and pregnant, like, get yourself together and call me back when you're done, yelling. And I was like, what's in this? And she's like, I don't know. So I looked on the ingredients to see what could have caused this reaction. And it's lots of long scientific words and, small print. And then I went online and Googled, allergic reaction, detergents, And I learned about all of these toxic chemicals, untested chemicals that are in everyday products. And not just detergents and cleaning products, but also beauty and personal care products, basically everything that you put on your skin. And I learned that basically in Europe, there were at that time, over 1,100 chemicals that were banned because they were deemed unsafe for human health. And they have to prove a chemical to be safe at its percentage, like in use in a product, before it can be brought into the marketplace. In the United States, there were like 10 that were banned. And I was the face of a beauty company, and we were selling like a $4 lipstick that I was like the face of here. And then in Europe, it was like a $25 lipstick because it had to be a completely different ingredient list. And I was like, and I was pregnant, and I'm like the face of this. And I was like, oh my gosh. And no one tells you this stuff. And I was like, how can I be contributing to anybody being sick, especially how sick I was as a kid? And so I lobbied for chemical reform to try and get the laws to be more like Europe here in the States, and kind of got nowhere. And I was like, well, I guess I could create the solution. And I was like, well, maybe there can be a different business model. Let's see. So it was really about building a company that's honest and transparent, that has, clean ingredients, and, just being really honest with the consumer about what's inside and what it does. And a lot of times, I was looking at the market and even making my own, products at home, which you can do, but they're not as effective, right? Like, if it doesn't clean your clothes, if it doesn't, wash your dishes, if it doesn't clean your house, clean your toilet, whatever it is, like, people aren't going to switch. If the makeup just looks like, different shades of dirt on your face, nobody wants that, right? Like, people want to be cute still. And so I was like, I don't feel like I'm a, like a vegan hippie, which no problem if you are, but that's just not my life, I love
I think
color
also we all have
fashion.
our own path and calling, and that stuff takes a lot of time, and yeah.
So I don't know, I was just like, I feel like there's probably a company that can really kind of show that you can have beautiful design, you could be super effective as anything else out there, but it could have, it could think about and put people's health and wellness at the forefront instead of the last thing, right? And then also think about the planet and how it affects the planet. And so I was like, it can be all of those things. And a lot of people said there's no way in hell. And I spent 3.5 years trying to convince a lot of people to help me get this dream off the ground. I spent my own money. I basically stopped acting full time. It wasn't my focus at all. And then about 3.5 years in, I finally convinced someone to join me, and we raised our seed funding, and then it just sort of skyrocketed. It was once people knew that they could make better choices, especially when it came to their own health or the health of their kids, they made that better choice. And so I think during COVID, people started thinking about their health and wellness differently. It's hard to stop and like read a label or care about that. And it feels so far from you unless you're actually dealing with an illness. But I think during COVID, everyone, for the first time really reflected on their life choices. So something that everyone said was like a little niche of a market became table stakes now, and all of these companies are now having to figure out how to be more honest. And I took the company public, and it's not easy. There's still a lot of resistance because the marketplace isn't really there yet completely when it comes to all of the other companies. But I am hoping, if through our success, that we can continue to help move the needle in the right way and fulfill the purpose of, people should be healthy and happy. And it doesn't matter where you live or who you are. And, the planet should be taken care of. And that's what we stand for. And people who are living in unfortunate circumstances, you should treat them how you would want them to treat you if you're in those circumstances. And so all those values and ethics is built into what my business is. So that's honest.
Amazing. I love how you kind of transformed that kind of anger into like sacred action, like passion, And I'm curious as well, like, as you know, I'm very pregnant right now with my second child. And I'm a creative and business owner as well. And I've noticed the creations that have come when I've been pregnant with each child. And I wonder, like, with the birth of those first seeds of Honest, like, did it feel like it was a co-creation with your daughter?
100%. Yeah. It was interesting because, like, Honor really brought that, I think that self-awareness around like the bigger purpose and refocusing my soul in the direction of, there's something bigger out here, and we're all here for a reason, which is that intuition I had as a child. Because life can, when you're working and you're, you have mortgage and you have things and you're in the world, you can get caught up in just the career sort of, that rat race, and like being an adult and adulting and whatever that looks like, and relationships and, again, what all the distractions of what society is kind of built around. And we dreamt it, right? We created this distraction. But Honor, having a baby is the closest thing you feel to life and death. And you feel that mortality, right? In a way that I've never felt before. It's kind of profound. And so she definitely like opened up my perspective in that way, realigned, I think, me to purpose in a way that was like undeniable. Like I couldn't go back to once I was once I woke up, I couldn't go back to how I was. And then and I think my whole identity was really attached to success and my career. I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really have a lot of friends, and I really didn't have anything else going on. And so my identity was really kind of caught up in that, and it was unfulfilling. It didn't give back on the other end how much I put in. It was like an empty well. And when I put in the time and the love and the care into my daughter, it gave back tenfold, so much more. Like that kid will never love me as much as I love her. And then I feel like with Haven is this like Leo, like fire. She's colorful. She's super intuitive. And that was just sort of that fire determination of not backing down, because after 3.5 years of people telling you you're nuts and you're out of your league, and I didn't go to business school. I graduated with a GED at 16, so I always didn't. I guess I always felt insecure about my intelligence, and I was kind of ashamed of that, and Haven really helped me come into my power, to actually get shit done and get the company off the ground, and that like determination. So yeah, their spirits definitely helped.
I think it's really interesting because I'm not sure about you, but for me, like you explained, I always had that dialogue with God or the sacred of like, I'm here for a reason. I need to find out what it is and just help me and I'll give back. Like I definitely had that. That wasn't learned. It's like I came in knowing, and I would tell my mom that when I was younger. You too? Yeah. So do you think that that's the soul, or was it your sickness as a child that initiated that? What do you think that was? Where does that come from?
That was before I would get sick. I think I just knew. I think I always just knew that I had a connection. I mean, I used to see things too. I mean, I saw entities, I guess. And I grew up so my mom's family, I didn't know her family growing up. I really grew up in a Mexican-American family, and I guess sort of wooey things are really common. It's like everyone is sort of a little bit psychic. They wouldn't call it that because it's demonized. But like there's all kinds of like little spells and magic, and they call them prayers, and rituals that I guess were always kind of in the background. So it wasn't like, it was like, oh yeah, your Theo used to see this and your cousin sees that. And it was always just kind of like, whatever, next. But I was really kind of tormented when I was a kid with a dark kind of energy of seeing people's sorrow and sadness. And it would get me at night a lot. But then sometimes it would interrupt my sleep, and I didn't sleep a lot. So yeah, I definitely had that. And I saw my cousin's like bear walk her when she was like 2. She was like standing and talking to her bear, and her bear was standing up in her room, teddy bear. And so there was like a couple that, I guess any home that had maybe some spirits that were stuck in it, they definitely didn't hide themselves from me.
That must have been really scary growing up.
Yeah, I was terrified. And then my mom loved scary movies on top of it. So when I was having insomnia, I would sneak out and hide behind the couch so I could be around people, and they were always watching like I felt like they were always watching a horror movie, so that didn't help at all. On top of everything else, but yeah, I guess you having that connection to the things that are sort of not everyone sees or accepts as facts, and then it's funny because now. Well, on one hand, they're like, yeah, they're intuitive. And on the other hand, my dad will be like my grandpa passed away. And so I invited this woman who has like so many gifts, but one of them is she can speak to people who have passed. And she literally talked to my dad, literally about my grandpa came through facts, like stuff that only my dad knows, that my grandpa knows, and stuff they can only know with one another. And my dad will still be like, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not sure if did that happen? He's like, did that happen? I'm like, yes. But again, it's so infuriating because then it makes me feel crazy, because my whole life it was like something would happen, like so obvious. Like I was 17 and all of my covers in my room, all my bedding got thrown off of me, and I was like pinned down by something, and it was terrifying. And my the water in my sinks in my bathroom turned on the faucets in the middle of the night, and I run into my parents. Once I got myself free, I ran into my parents' room, and it happened. But then they're like, yeah, did that really happen? I don't really know. You know what I mean? And then you just makes you feel like, am I losing my fucking mind?
It's so interesting, isn't it? When because I really resonate with what you're saying. I mean, our families are obviously different, but I didn't grow up in a uber spiritual family or anything. And my dad, bless him, he's very proud of me, and he'll be there in support or whatever. But even still, with everything I experienced, when I was younger, I started channeling dead kids, literally, and I'd be connected with their mothers and parents, and it was quite very confusing, but very startling. It was strong. And yet my dad is still I'm every year I'm so what do you think, Dad? And I'm hand him another book or whatever where I've shared my story. He's I'm do you still think when you're dead, you're dead? And he's yup. And it's just but then sometimes I reflect on that, and if we come at it from the perspective of the soul chooses the family, which is a theory,
100%.
When I reflect on that, I'm okay, well, if my soul came into a family that was really mystical and really maybe I wouldn't have the grounding and the drive and the willpower that I do, that's necessary to actually turn passion into action. Do you resonate with
do
that?
something with it? Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, they're the resistance built the character or the personality traits for you to take your gifts and put them into action.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think about that too. I think that also has been a part of a lot of my healing with my family. And, we all have our own stuff, and nobody's perfect, of course, and everyone's trying to do the best they can. And like I said, my parents are definitely always trying to do the best they can. And whether that was always great or not for me, they're not, I don't blame them for that. But I do think that my soul chose to be in this situation in order for me to hone in on, have the drive probably to get shit done, but then also to trust myself at such an early age that I literally started working full time at age 12, which was common when people lived. Yeah. And I really drove that and pushed that. And I think it saved my life, frankly, because I was really kind of depressed as well, living in just feeling so lonely, such a fish out of water for so long, for so much of my life.
And where do you think that drive came from, and what was it that you were driving towards, do you think?
I think I was driving towards wanting to feel find my home. I think that's something I always know. I was I knew inside that it was out there somewhere that there were people like me. And I just needed, I knew that the situation, the family, the life that I was born into, it didn't feel like my community, like my soul community or something. And so I guess my drive was to find what felt closer to my home or something.
It's interesting. I remember in my youth and like definitely 20s as well, feeling very, very similar, but also feeling like I need to like I was very afraid to share my voice and my creations because I knew clearly what they were and they were a bit like, yeah, they're just different, you know. And yeah, I started seeing people who were out in the public eye who were kind of doing similar things. And I'm like, well, they're my people. But I knew I needed to kind of step out in order to find them and then to find my people too. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, like, because I think people recognize their people. And so it's like I'm very curious about that visibility piece with you of like you just knew that you needed to be seen in a way to be recognized. Yeah, I think there's something very interesting in that.
It's, you know, what's you know, what's funny though, is like, I was drawn to acting because I wanted to be somebody else. And the fame piece of it has frankly been the most difficult part of the whole thing. I had to find peace with like that's what success means, and to have like gratitude for that life that it's allowed me to have. But it's probably the thing that took me the longest to be comfortable or okay with the public thing.
And how are you with that now?
I I'm okay. I know when I'm not when I don't do enough self-care, like I was finding that I was in a mode of being just like always kind of on edge and frustrated and a little bit just like not happy, just like frustrated and short and snappy. And I think I didn't realize that maybe that I am as sensitive or like as much of an empath as I am, and it's exhausting to take on so much. Like I absorb people's energy that are around me. So like malls, ever since I was younger, like that's my nightmare. Being in crowded spaces, like I freak out. So I can like almost put like a shield around myself, and I play a character when I can do the thing, when I need to be on TV or when I need to present or when I need to do the carpet or do the stuff, and I can go into that mode. But it's a character. And there's a guard up.
So would you say that you're an introvert in that way?
Yeah, much more of an introvert, which is bizarre for what I do. Because
well, actually, most people that I know who do have like a big presence in the world are actually introverts, and they can they step in and can turn it on, and then they need to go back into the cave. I think it's interesting. It's interesting, but yeah, I think that there's something that is maybe one day soon we'll kind of learn a bit more about the energetic effects of like social media and just having a big presence in the world and how that actually affects us individually. What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because I think that we have been so programmed and so desensitized over the years around words, intentions, thoughts, and how powerful those things can be. And so whether someone's doing it to you from a distance or up close and personal, it's all the same. And the amount, I think, is unprecedented of energy that people are throwing around at each other, especially negative energy, because their cup isn't full and the world is telling them that they need to be this, or that. And I think society has set people up around trying to fill themselves with things that are just ultimately, at the end of the day, never going to be fulfilling. It's a lot of external stuff. And ultimately, like, you have to be your own best friend. You have to be your own nurturing mother. You have to be your own nurturing father. You have to be your greatest love of your life. And the more we can be centered around that, then we can live with more compassion. But social media and all of that, you know, regardless of how centered or how in the light or how much you do to keep yourself sort of clean, I think the amount of energy that is thrown around at people is unprecedented. And even the fact that, like, kids at school, you're not just dealing with your peers. Like, my daughter's on social media, and you can't not have them be on social media. It's just not realistic, right? Even over, like, there's now like text groups and all of these things. So there's just no way to really shield them from it. And it's fine because there's so many beautiful things that could come out of it. But my daughters are not just confined to like the school they go to. It's literally like everyone that they go to school with, friends, and then their friends, and then their friends. So it's like the city of their entire city of kids their age. Now that energy is getting thrown around. And, you know, hormones and envy and anger, and also just like, she ain't shit and I'm the shit, you know, whatever it is, the energy that kids are going through because of their own life journey and life circumstance. They're getting that at that age, and it's a lot. And so I've been trying to like help my kids just have some practice of like cleansing and just like keeping their energy like clean. Even just like a little prayer of light. And they are like, Mom, it's so annoying when you want us to meditate. Oh my God. Like, only when we're going to sleep, I'll listen to it. Like, just like, why do I have to do this? It's so boring. Like, why are you punishing me? And I'm like, oh my God, I want this to not be a punishment. Like, it should be something that like they teach people in school, just to like connect with your heart, connect with your breath, right? It's your prana, it's your life force. Ground yourself onto this earth. We're all like walking on this earth, like just obvious things. And like even just that intention can ground people, ground kids, so they're not so thrown around with all this energy that like it's just unprecedented. You're right, it's unprecedented. It's real. Energy is real. It's been documented. Sound vibrations are real. All of that. So I just feel like all the things that we have been desensitized to are the things that we need to care about in order to move into a more loving, kind, and compassionate world, frankly, that we all need, that we all want, you know. And really, no, it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to feel like they matter and they're part of a community. And nobody wants to live in like anger and frustration, you know? Those are just like basic things.
Yeah. And so to conclude our chat today, I want to ask you two questions that I ask all our guests. First of all, what does a sacred mean to you?
The sacred is everywhere. It means to me, it's the connection to light and life that's inside of you. It's your breath, it's the flowers, it's the blade of grass, it's the water, it's like everything down to the molecular level that you can't see with the naked eye. It's that feeling you get when you walk in the room and you feel awesome, or that feeling you get when you walk in the room and you're like, I don't know if this is right for me. And so I think so much, we believe so much of what our brain tells us or our mind, but to me, the sacred is the heart. And we can thank the mind for doing what it needs to do to help us get through the life. But ultimately, it's the sacred is the connection to the heart. That is the connection to everything.
Thank you. And then what returns you to yourself and the wisdom within?
I don't discriminate. I love a sound bath. I love a meditation. I love a book. I love good music. I love dancing. I love a proper chat, a yummy cup of tea, cozy blanket. It's really anything that just for me, it like fills my cup. And I used to think of it as selfish. Because I always felt like I needed to be doing something for other people, and I needed to be productive to like be worthy of my existence. Doing. But it's all of those moments where it just feels good to exist.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and connection today. I've loved learning more about you, especially about you as little Jessica. And, I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with those feelings of, when we were little, and I think it's really interesting to ponder what is that part of us that came here, that came in knowing potentially. So thank you so much for sharing about that.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And I hope we get to hang out in Glastonbury again.
Yay, me too.
Soul inquiry is a practice where we enter into a dialogue with our wise inner self. I like to write my answers as I find I receive them more deeply that way. So I use a notepad and pen, so feel free to do that. But if that's not practical, then you can just speak it out loud or even just tune in to the voice within. So today's soul inquiry prompt is, what does the younger you need to hear today? What does the younger you need to hear today? And how can you give the younger you what you need today? How can you give the younger you what you need today? Now it is time to commit to a grounded action. And so I want you to write down a baby step you can take today to act on what's come through for you. What's a baby step you can take? Something that will take no longer than 5 minutes. What's one little baby step you can take to integrate this today? It's been a beautiful episode. Let's share a final deep breath together now as we close this sacred space that we've stepped into together. I'm so grateful for you being here with me. If you'd like to keep returning to yourself and returning here with me, then hit subscribe. If you'd like the show notes from today's episode or to sign up to receive each new episode directly to your inbox, then head over to rebeccacampbell.me/podcast. Thanks. Have a great day. The best decision I ever made was showing up to a regular daily spiritual practice. If you're looking to commit to, explore, expand, or deepen your own spiritual practice, you might like to check out the free Discover Your Spiritual Practice program. When you sign up for Discover Your Spiritual Practice, you'll receive 7 days of free guided practice. So head over to rebeccacampbell.me/practice to get started.